what I want to do is an experiment, ladies and gentlemen. And this is going to be a two-topic show. Both topics are probably going to run 45 minutes each. We are going to get into the Phil Spencer conversation on the back end of the show, so hang out for that. But I have to have this conversation because, again, Dirk Griggity had an amazing show last night in his one-man Dark Man. But I was telling Korkenstein, and again, this is a conversation that Dirt had a couple of weeks ago, where he said if you put into your title Xbox is dead, you're going to see massive engagement. So that all of that in conjunction with this tweet from, once again, the Turk. He put this out on the 18th of October, and this is what we're going to use to jumpstart today's Xbox, the Xbox itself, the platform, its brand, versus games media and the games community, and of course, what the reality is. So he said in a tweet, "I proved the Xbox tax is real and didn't even use the word Xbox." So he has a chart here, right? And this all was sparked over a lie about Xbox getting out of hardware, right? Xbox being pulled off of shelves. And he says, yesterday was a red letter day for me on X. On this tweet that had nothing to do with Xbox, but turned into it, he had 1.5 million impressions, 4 times his normal engagement, 2 times more reposts, and 2.5 times more likes. And this is what he says. And it was over a lie. He says, let me explain. So he goes on to say, with the Xbox Ally reveal, the internet exploded. And this is some of the conversation that came out of it. It's not a real Xbox. It's $1,000 for a handheld. What a scam. But here's the thing. I wasn't even showing the Xbox Ally at all. And it just, this is what I think Xbox content creators are really up against. So, like I told you in the beginning, I took the time to put this graph together. Now, I'm not going to show it because it's just a bunch of words, but I do have it written, and I did take the time to write up this Word document for today's show before I hand the mic over to both Fuzzy Belvedere and Korkenstein. So, again, this is the last 3 weeks for Xbox. When you talk about negative news, when you talk about Xbox is dying, when you talk about they're leaving the gaming space, this is what was put into print, ladies and gentlemen. And this is just the last 3 weeks, right? So it started on a Friday and kind of exploded on the weekend, where this smoke was righteous and well-deserved. And it started with the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate price increase. Now, that is a rake step. That is it's smoke that they earned and they deserve. It's criticism from a community that has really supported the Xbox brand and a community that was very outspoken. And I still stand on my square that I think that, A, it was the wrong time for a price increase. And I think that damn price increase was $5 too much. They could have done it in increments to get to that $10. I didn't think they had to just rip off the Band-Aid and make you bleed again. But they did that. And that's righteous smoke, ladies and gentlemen. And it's well-earned smoke. But here is where it's not. The following weekend, you had Walmart and Target pulling Xbox off of their shelves, that on a Sunday, Xbox had to respond, and we did see an actual response from Target, and then there was a response from Walmart, which I had not confirmed was real, that was going around as well. Then the following weekend, you had Xbox is not making their next-gen consoles. Apparently, that ship has sailed. That was a really big thing. All of the bigs reported. And again, we're not trying to throw any journalists under the bus here. We're just literally just reading what has transpired, ladies and gentlemen. And everybody talked about it like it was fact. On a Sunday, Xbox had to come out and say, nope, we are doing hardware. And interestingly enough, shout out to Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer and their PR team for getting in front of this. Because if you've noticed, you had Sarah Bond doing the ABC interview regarding the Xbox Ally and Ally X release. You had her just do the other interview with that YouTuber that has nearly 2 million subscribers confirming next generation hardware, where she said the next Xbox is going to be a premium curated device. Means it's going to be money. And it's probably going to be a very high-end console hybrid PC. And the narrative there was, why is Xbox making an expensive box that's not going to sell? PlayStation 6 better, $500. See what I'm talking about? This is the start of the ridiculousness. So after that, the not making the consoles and the next Xbox being so premium that it's too expensive and PS6 better because it's going to be cheaper, even though some of these ridiculous ponies think it's going to be a $500 device when the PS5 Pro is $800 in 2025. Okay. See what I'm talking about, folks? Ridiculous. But it gets worse. Everyone that is anti-Xbox banged their drum about the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally not being an Xbox handheld, simply because it was a partnered device. When you say partnered, you mean you put in 50% of the work. And they did. They put 50% into the work of the design. They helped ROG make this thing. ROG is the producer of it. They made the device. But you don't think they sat down with Jason Ronald and the Surface team and actually worked shoulder and shoulder to get this thing to actually be a device that we're all playing? Of course they did. But according to games media and games community, it's not an Xbox. How dare you? And then these next two things, folks, are the backbreaker for why there is Xbox tax. Now, look, I've been gaming since 1978. I've been a podcaster since November 3rd of 2017. In all of my gaming life, in all of my so-called professional podcasting that I've put on since 2017, I don't think I have ever in my life had a conversation about effing dev kit prices. But don't you know that was a major story? I saw Tom Warren. I saw a VGT. I saw a bunch of people running with this dev kit pricing. Like, in all of my gaming life, I have never had that conversation. Have you? Have you sat down with your friends' chat and said, hey, Johnny, do you believe that they raised the prices of the dev kits on the PlayStation? I mean, like, are we effing serious? But here is the nail in the coffin of this. Actual business politics running the gambit yesterday, and still a conversation about Amy Hood's, the report that Amy Hood has demanded that Xbox division have a 30% profitability. This is the most inside baseball you could ever talk about, and yet it is a running narrative conversation towards Xbox negativity. Like, are we effing kidding me with this? Are we actually serious? And yes, and one of the things I just kind of want to, let you guys and gals know that I was talking with Everborn and Asante this morning, as we normally do. We do our normal conversation. The thing that's left out of this conversation is that 30% is not expected next week, you assholes. You know when it's due? 2030. By 2030, they want Xbox to be at 30% profitability. But that has not been in any of the stories. And I only knew that speaking to Everborn, right? So that is the false reality that I just presented to you. So now, as a lawyer, I'm going to present my case. I'm going to present what Xbox has done in the last 8 days versus that versus what PlayStation has done in the entire calendar year of 2025. Right? So maybe I'm being a little long-winded, but this is for context, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll be quick with this one. This is the Xbox reality in the last 8 days. Why none of this, why it proves that there is Xbox tax, and why no matter what Xbox does, good, bad, or indifferent, they are never going to win with the community, or at least the anti-Xbox community, and they're never winning with games media, because games media, a lot of them are just whores. And they're going to whore themselves out there and put the most egregious lines to simply make as many clicks as they can. Now, I'm not stupid, folks. I understand it's a business, but you can also do things to be engaging that doesn't have to be Xbox is dead. Okay? But this is what Xbox, ladies and gentlemen, has done in the last 8 days. This is what should be celebrated. This is what should be held up. Well, of course, going back to last Thursday, the ROG Xbox Ally and Xbox Ally released. And it released to good scores, really good scores. It's sold out in a lot of places. And people, even though it does have a hefty price tag at $601,000, is selling, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, it's partnered. Yes, it's an OEM device, but it is an Xbox. It's a branded Xbox. It has Xbox all over the box. It has an Xbox button on the actual device. It has an originally made Xbox UI designed by Xbox. I guess if it looks like an Xbox, walks like an Xbox, it probably farts like an Xbox. So guess what, folks? It's an Xbox. You also have 3 games released in 8 days. Keeper, Ninja Gaiden 4, and The Outer Worlds 2. 3 games in 8 days. Do you know that is more, or at least equals? Because I know some of them are going to be like, well, Death Stranding was, partnered. So, yeah. Okay, MLB. Oh, you know what? I forgot about baby steps. What Xbox has been able to do in 8 days, it took PlayStation the entire calendar year. But Xbox is dead, ladies and gentlemen, right? So you want to make sure that's a clear. So yesterday, Fallout Day happens. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. That Fallout Day stream was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I covered it. And you know what? I knew I had a chance of it being terrible. But it was just awful. But at the end of that, we got Todd Howard to come out. And Todd Howard has confirmed publicly at this Fallout Day event that they're working on multiple Fallout titles and that he can't wait to share. That's positive news, I think, right? And also, you have, when you consider one of the premier franchises, and maybe it's not up in your upper echelon of franchises, we got the report yesterday that Halo is being revived. This is a report that came out that Xbox wants to revive the Halo franchise, and we're getting 2 announcements today. So if you just look at what Xbox has done in the last 8 days versus the stark reality, well, you take it up as the stark reality versus the false reality, which is what I presented my case for how Xbox is dead in the front of this. It just goes to show you that the Xbox tax is in fact real. And I know that there's going to be people that are going to clip this and push back on it. Do whatever you want. But I think I presented a really good case here. Korkenstein, I want to bring you in, brother. I think that when you just look at the numbers, if we're dealing with evidence-based conversation, it's really hard to argue against the fact that there is a Xbox tax and that the anti-Xbox community, especially the games media, will continue to use Xbox for their clicks. Look at your thoughts, man.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we've all known exists. And I know, in previous ones, Paris has jumped in and talked about it. It's definitely not every media person. I know we're throwing kind of a big blanket over this. And I have respect for you. We're not going to start, you have a no names thing, and I want to respect that as well. So just for the sake of transparency, we're speaking about this in a general fashion because we're not here um to kind of cause that trolling or negativity here. Um so when I talk about this, I'm talking about certain publications. Like there's a certain game that's coming out that just dropped a review, and in the review there's like 3 sentences about Microsoft as a company.
Yeah, you can mention them. You can mention them. You're talking about VGC. I
Yes,
talked
sir.
about them yesterday. That was one of the most egregious, self-righteous, one-sided, I hate Microsoft reviews that had nothing to do with the game I've ever read in my entire life. Please, by all means, you can mention them by names. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's stuff like that with VGC. Which we've known. I've always said this is this gen's Kotaku. VGC is this gen's Kotaku when it comes to journalistic integrity and what they're doing. And when you have people like Midler and Dring and that kind of, and even Robinson at sometimes, this is the people that vote also for, remember, the TGAs.
That is correct, sir.
These are the same board. Most of the people that we've seen from Metro, that we've seen horrible clickbaits, PC Gamer, Game Rant, the Gamer. These are the people that are voting in the TGAs that consistently apply an Xbox tax.
Yes.
And I want to be honest, this is Xbox's fault. I'm going to be, they have a Halo event going on right now, and they invited all these people.
Thank you very much for saying that, sir. I literally said that privately. I will say it publicly. I will literally, and you know something, I'm going to remove the no names conversation. By all means, name the names, because you know what? I think Dirk Griggity is right. Sometimes you got to fight fire with fire. So if you want to name the names, by all means, name the names. But you know something? And look, I have no qualms. We're a 16,000 subscriber channel, which is nothing on YouTube these days. Absolutely nothing. And I am always invited by Xbox to all of these events. Always. Right? But what I will say, and I'm always going to be grateful for that. Literally, I just had a conversation with one of their PR folks, and it was awesome. Right? But I did see who was invited to this Halo event because of some, and again, I'm not going to go out of my way to be a jerk, but some of the people they invited, Korkenstein, have gone out of their way to shit on Xbox on a regular basis to the point it's like, please, on the doll, show me where Xbox touched you and we will press charges. Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah, and it's just some of the people they invited, and then people, and then you wonder why there's leaks happening where we already know the game that they're gonna announce in like 8 hours, 7 hours.
Yeah.
It's just so silly, but Xbox does it to themselves, and I know they have Assembly PR that handles a lot of their stuff, but that they do nothing to protect the Xbox brand, which is frustrating because you see people getting these codes still, and they'll turn right back around and just, like I said, shit on the Xbox brand. And guess what? Another game comes out, they get another code, and I'm not one for blacklisting in the sense that, I don't like what you said. I don't like what you said. You can't have any more codes kind of deal. That's not the case. There's valid criticism. You've had valid criticism and you've explained it in a discussion in a healthy way. Tom Warren from The Verge does the same thing. Even Paris has done it. There's and there's room for criticism against Xbox, but when your site does nothing but create FUD and narratives and clickbait mess, and it's just, that's your whole point and that's your whole identity and ideal towards Xbox, they need to be cut off. They do nothing to rep your brand in a positive way. They use your brand to generate negativity and boost their own engagement because, like we just said, there's an Xbox tax and they get a ton of clicks. We saw it with Starfield as well. As many people, this game's horrible, it's trash. They had 80 guide articles up on how to get this gun, how to build this ship.
Yes, thank you, sir.
They spoke out of both sides of their mouth. It's there, and it's something that's very, very real, that's been an issue for a long time, that Xbox just has no spine when it comes to that. I get it. They don't want to. I mean, they got a lot of smoke when Bethesda, and I was happy when Bethesda was like, F you, Eurogamer, you're not getting a code. And then they did this whole tirade and cried and lied about the codes of, oh, well, they gave it to Digital Foundry, and Digital Foundry said, no, you can't share it with them. And then Digital Foundry was like, no, he didn't. It was just silly stuff like that. And from games media, there are a few. And like I said, I've called him out. Tom Warren, I think, is he's probably the number one journalist, in my opinion, that actually does his research and isn't just straight out to the news farm to push garbage. He gets his facts right. As much people that hate Jez, he's definitely somebody that gets stuff more right than wrong.
Yeah,
he's a little early to the punch, but people never remember that. But he does his research, and he definitely does. He writes with his heart, and that's what I love about Jez. Is he definitely does get a little emotional with it, but it's because he has such a huge passion for gaming that you don't see from other writers. And so sometimes his heart leads him a little astray and he gets a little bit too emotional into it. And that's why we get some of these crazy opinion articles. I wouldn't say crazy because they're valid because it's his opinion. But that's how we get some of these opinion articles where people go back and forth, where one week he's a pony and the next week he's an X-bot, and people jump those lines. But yeah, there's plenty of journalists out there. I mean, the whole Xbox era crew are solid dudes.
Yeah,
that
one of my favorites, honestly.
They don't buy into the clickbait. They try and get their stuff right first, and they rather be right than, and it kind of hurts them. And most journalists, like you even said, to quote Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. And if you're not getting those initial clicks right away, you're not going to see the engagement. And that's where the Xbox tax kind of thrives. That's where Google plays a whole part. I mean, like I said, I could keep going into this with SEO and stuff like that, but negativity sells. And you even said it before, if it bleeds, it leads. And right now, the media would have you believe that Xbox is a stuck pig that's just hemorrhaging all over the place, running around. And that's not the case. We've had so many games, and we continue to get so many games that come out, and they're just absolutely amazing. And PlayStation, silent. Nintendo, silent. And it's just sad that there's so much stuff Xbox is actually doing right now for the industry and for consumers. And yeah, you may not like the price increase, but look at what we just said. How many games have we gotten now that are way over that $360 a year price raise up that we just got? If they continue with that, for me, that's value for me. So I don't mind it, but I get it if it's not value for everybody. But when you have those $360 and we're getting these bangers that we're constantly getting, like the Outer Worlds 2, even though the Keeper is a $30 title and it's, a little bit more indie, it's, even though it's from Double Fine, but it has more of like a indie-ish kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
That's still a solid title. It's a beautiful narrative game. We're getting Call of Duty. We're getting, we got Call of Duty last year. We got Indiana Jones. We got Avowed. We got South of Midnight. We're getting, all these games that are coming out and just silent. It's all people can do is just crap on Xbox rather than just enjoy games, do what they're supposed to and report fair. And, there are valid criticisms. Like I said, I think how they rolled out the whole price increase was horrible. I don't think they really had a great messaging for it. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot with cloud by not making the maximum standard across all tiers. I think, for me, I think what they should have done is premium should have first party games only. And then if you want the bells and whistles, get ultimate. Now you get all the, third party, including first party, at least bare minimum stuff like that. But that's neither here nor there. But there was people that actually reported on it fairly, and then there was people that just wanted to doom and gloom everything.
Yep.
This 30%. I mean, that this is a business, and it sucks, but I've even said, and I've been saying this for the last year now, that and I've even been told things that this isn't Phil and Sarah's Xbox pretty much anymore. It's, for the most part, it's Amy Hood and Nadella. So um it's they've got to bat. When it came to the canceling the games, there were people out, there's, like I said, I mentioned it on your show, there were people at Xbox actively fighting not to do it, and they ended up getting overruled on it, things like that. So it's just, people want to just create these narratives, and no one wants to sit down and actually have a discussion and understand where what's actually happening, and wants to have a healthy discussion to see. It's just hate, 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 and it sucks that's what, I've definitely taken a break off of social media for a bit, as well, like Fuzzy, and I just been gaming, and I've definitely enjoyed my time a lot more than what it is. It's just, we can't keep going back to media and expect them to be biased. A lot of it's not even hate for Xbox, it's hate for Microsoft, which sucks. Because it's not even the Xbox brand, it's Microsoft, that a lot of them hate, and rightfully so. Microsoft has done some pretty, egregious things. So I get where that smoke's coming from, but you got to stop and realize, like, this, when during all this stuff, this wasn't, Microsoft, this was Xbox that's thriving and pushing gamers forward and things like that. So I just wish we had more, and this is why I'm so appreciative of channels like this, like Web Dave, with Hargeet, talking to you, Fuzzy, PTK, Mav, Pong, about Paris. We actually have a community that wants healthy discussion. And I think that's what people are, and that's what I think the media is more afraid of, is because we get the engagement that they kind of wish they had, without having to do the dooming and narratives and clickbait and all of that. We can actually build a rapport with the listeners and the community members much more than they can. And yeah, I think that's why they're such kind of like scared of content creators.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, look, Xbox steps on rakes. And I think it's fair to say, Fuzzy Belvedere, that especially because you work with me twice a week, we have gone to town and given the righteous smoke because it's deserved. What we are seeing here, and what I presented before, to open the show, about this Xbox tax being to a point where lies are being committed, and journos are not only taking and running with the ball, they are flashing it right on the front screen. And I mean, a perfect example is Shinobi 602, for instance. Now, I've talked about Shinobi 602, and I follow him. I don't think he follows me, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. But he was one of the originators for Xbox being pulled off of the shelves of Walmart and Target. And he put out there on Front Street a picture that was from 2023, not doing his due diligence. He did it for engagement. Now, whether you hate him, like him, or otherwise, I still follow him, and I like what he does with the community. And just the other day, interestingly enough, he put out Xbox making hardware. Oh my God. And people were like, hey, is it sourced? You know what I'm saying? And it kind of really gave it to him. And that's earned. Now, the source, yes, it was, because it was actually Sarah Bond, president of Xbox, who said this during her sit-down interview, where, of course, again, we've known this. They are doing hardware, folks. They are. We're going to get into what Phil Spencer had to say, where they, I don't know, is it quadruple down right now? They're up to the quadruple, or is it 5? Is it 6 times down that they have confirmed hardware? We're going to get into that. That's the Famitsu Wave interview that we're going to get into. But I kind of want to keep our attention here. I think I presented a very fair case. Yeah. I don't think anything that I said to open up the anti-Xbox conversation versus the reality. I do think it's broken down in a way that is understandable. It might be long-winded, sure, but that is how much negativity has come out in the last 3 weeks against Xbox. Yeah. And it's crazy because when you look at the actual breakdown, the two that jump off the page for me that proves that that these publications are striving for the click and they don't care how they get it is when you start reporting on the dev kit price increases and Xbox division expected to make 30%. That is Corpo 101. I don't recall a conversation hearing what corporate is doing with the demands for PlayStation or Xbox in all of my years as a podcaster, nor have I ever had a conversation publicly about dev kit prices for PlayStation or Nintendo. There was a story that broke a couple of weeks ago about Nintendo not sending the dev kits out, but that was like a blip. You literally saw one story or somebody in the community talk about it, and it completely went away. But
and the spin on that was, it wasn't like it was a bad thing. Like, you have this Switch 2 come out, you would think that would be the priority. No, think it for the Switch. That way it will work on the Switch 2 by default. No,
yeah,
we want newer games that aren't being held back by this, cell phone equivalent hardware in the Switch 1. But I'm sorry, continue.
No. And I want to hand the mic over to you because I do think that there is something to be said about the like I like to call the dreaded Xbox tax. And I'm sorry to say, even if you are someone in the chat that disagrees, I think the case I have presented proves otherwise. As a matter of fact, I would dare say what Jacob Turksland has presented, where he literally didn't even put the word Xbox in there, and he saw engagement that he's never seen before on X, proves exactly the point. But please, let's get your thoughts on the stark reality of what Xbox has done in the last 8 days versus the false reality that has been presented by Games Media for 3 weeks plus.
Well, one of the bright points of that whole Xbox tax chart that he was talking about was the Xbox Ally. Instead of us as gamers being excited about new pieces of hardware, I mean, I get it. If it's out of your price range, it's out of your price range. Even if it's not your platform of choice, that's fine. It's not like it kicked your puppy or peed in your Cheerios. So I don't understand, if it's not your platform, why you would feel it necessary to proclaim that it's not an Xbox, even though it says Xbox on the box. Shout out to Doc Dark about the whole deal. Can the Portal play a PlayStation console game? And people were trying to talk about the not really the scope, but like not the narrative. I'm trying to think of the word, but basically, if you have to adjust the context as far as how you're looking at that device versus how you're looking at the Xbox Ally, then you're purposely going out of your way to nitpick a narrative that, if you're a gamer, shouldn't even be on your lips, kind of thing. It should be more so, hey, can this play games? Yes. It can play console games through streaming. It can play console games through cloud. It can play PC games natively. And leave it at that. And, oh, by the way, they're working on emulation, so that might fix some of this back and forth that people are going through on that device as well. So that was just one of those instances where, even if it's a good thing for gaming, because having a device that's more centralized where you can play different platform titles or a mix of different games or access to different games should be something celebrated. But instead, people want to be the syntax police and say that, well, because it doesn't play console games, it's not a console, or, well, it says console or PC handheld console. They're transforming, and then somebody said it perfectly in the chat earlier. Instead of focusing on Xbox being dead, should be focused on how they're evolving. And if they're blurring the lines between console and PC, that's also something that should be celebrated, in the sense that if things are getting more expensive and you already have a PC, you can still game. If you have a laptop that can do the cloud streaming or play the PC versions of these, play anywhere games, that should be celebrated. If you're able to play on your phone, if you can't get one of these PC handhelds and you get one of those like Kishi or Backbone controller pieces to it, that should be celebrated, not nitpicked to death. Like, oh, well, that's not gaming. Okay, it's not gaming for you, but as long as Xbox keeps on producing games and they're continuing to produce hardware, I think the argument about Xbox being dead is silly, and it feels like some, not all of the media, want Xbox out of the space. They'll say something like, "Oh, well, no, I don't want them to go away," but then they're focused on everything that's not really gaming community focused. Like, all right, I get it, 30% sounds like a big number in as far as profitability, and it's a little bit higher than the standard, but it's not higher than the standard for Nintendo. Nintendo is over 30% as of 2024. And they've been charging, like, they've been beating us over the head as consumers with their outdated hardware that they charge a premium price for. But where's the media talking about that? No, that's right. Nintendo is beloved. They are the ones that have been around since we've been in diapers. And now, hey, I'm a gaming journalist. I'm still playing on it. But they don't want to nitpick on something that's beloved to them. They don't want to point out, hey, I would like to play the classic games on my new hardware without having to pay for a subscription. Now, granted, the subscription's what, $20 a year, $30 a year. That's fine. I'd rather put the 20 or 30 or 50 if need be to have a native version of Super Mario World on my Switch 2. That would make more sense to me, but you remember, people said subscriptions were bad, except for when it's Nintendo. Or even when it's PlayStation, when you're playing the classics that you can only play via that subscription. There's no backwards compatibility, which I know people are like, well, you guys said you're all about back compat until this handheld came out. Well, no, we're still about it. It's just a matter of some of the back compat that we want natively on that device is still in the works. And it's more of a third party issue more so than the first party issue. And there's still ways around it. As long as you still have a console, it can do the game streaming. If you have some of your purchase items that are now in the cloud and you have Ultimate, you can still stream them to that device. Once they get emulation, which I hate to say it, even if Xbox doesn't get it figured out themselves, somebody will be bright enough to figure it out. I mean, there's been emulation for Nintendo games on devices like this. Heck, there's been even people emulating PlayStation 3 games on the Series S. So back compat is something that they're going to work on within legal realms, but there will be back compat available for that device. But all of that stuff aside, it just annoys me that somebody that has a device in each one of those platform ecosystems, I see some of the glaring issues, and I don't see anybody talking about it. And I get it. It may not be the biggest deal as far as when it comes to controllers. Like I'll never stop talking about how stupid it is, because it is stupid that you have to buy a second controller for your PlayStation 5 if you like the game more than 4 hours, because hey, you play the controller, it dies, and then you switch to the other one. That's stupid. That's the community accepting stupidness. And I'm calling it stupid because if you're the only one in the household playing that PS5, why do you get two controllers? Why do you need to have two controllers on backup? Like I have more than two controllers for my PlayStation because I like certain designs, and the same thing when it comes to my Xbox. But this device, 3 days before I have to put it back in the little charger.
Yes.
3 days of 8 hours each playing, and it's still over half battery life. Like I don't think I've put it in the charger in a week now because I'm using the steering wheel for NASCAR and for Forza and stuff. So, but when I've been playing, was it Ball Pit or Pit Ball or whatever it's called, Keeper?
I think it's Pit X Ball or Ball X Pit, something like that. Yeah.
It's like I don't have to worry about charging that controller, and it's an internal battery. Sure, I know it's a bigger internal battery than what's in the DualSense. Everybody, is praising the haptics. Even turning it down doesn't really get me beyond 4 hours, 5 years into its lifespan. And should I really have to buy a controller because the internal battery is dying? Sure, I know I can buy internal batteries and cut up the controller and, weld or not weld, but solder some of the new battery in and stuff. But you see why having replaceable batteries is a good option. In fact, they're actually going to that because, and granted, if people had complained about the crappiness of their internal batteries sooner, maybe they would have offered this as an option sooner. But I digress. Xbox tax is a real thing. I know there are people that will disagree. I'll disagree to disagree or agree to disagree or however you want to call it. But I find it funny that no matter what, like Xbox isn't on the shelves. Oh, they pulled, retail, or they're not selling their hardware, or retailers are pulling their hardware. oh, Xboxes are on the shelf. Oh, well, they're not selling fast enough. It's like, okay, they confirmed that they're profitable on their Game Pass because it was non-sustainable or unsustainable for, according to some communities, for the past 10 years or however long it's been around. Um, and then they're like, okay, well, with that, well, they're not selling enough hardware, so that's why some of these devs are skipping it. Well, no, it's the prices of the dev kits that's doing it, but you have some, at least some journalists pointing out that there's still free ways for some of the indie
Yes.
devs to be able to get access to it.
If you become
And-
part of ID at Xbox, they give you 2. Now, if
Right.
you need more for more development oomph, if you will, if you start getting into the double and triple A development, those you have to pay for. But if you join ID at Xbox and your game gets approved, they give you 2 kits. That is very specific information that was left out of all of these articles, but very easy to find if you did a simple Google search. So it just proves that games media is being disingenuous and they are using Xbox negativity for their click ratio. Please continue, sir.
And I was going to say, you can turn your normal retail console, the one that you could buy for $500, $600, into a dev kit.
Correct, sir. Yes, you can. Again, another point left out of the conversation. Wow.
And see, I think Xbox, and I'll agree with Corkenstein to some extent. Some of the rake stepping or some of this Xbox tax is kind of brought on themselves because, and hear me out. Xbox is probably one of the most transparent companies as far as what they're doing and what's going on. Sure, there's still stuff that we don't always know, but that's the case across the industry. It's like pretty much like rocket science and secret or spy stuff with secrets and stuff in the industry. Although stuff does leak on occasion, but they're probably the most transparent. You would think, and this is just me, as if I was to be a gaming journalist, and I tried to take the same approach when I was in the auto industry when it came to evaluating or doing the retail on stuff, and where you have competing brands amongst different accessories or categories and stuff like that. If you want to be fair and balanced, and you find out that something's 30% as far as what their mark is as far as profitability, I would also report on the other platforms just for the comparison's sake, as opposed to saying, well, it's higher than the industry norm. Okay. Well, are we talking about independent games? Are we talking about platform holders? Because if you were talking about platform holders, Nintendo is higher than 30%. But then nobody wants to talk about Nintendo because, well, they're not really a console company anymore. They're not the premium experience. They're a handheld. Okay, if you want to make those distinctions, but I don't see anybody talking about it. Maybe it's because Nintendo will be like, "Go f yourself" if they start asking those questions, or they'll send the ninja lawyers after them, and then that'll be the end of those people. But in any regard, there's not that fair and balanced reporting. Like if you're going to report on one doing something, report on how all the others handle it. That would seem fair to me, or at least seem like it's balanced, or you're being objective. But it doesn't feel like any of them are being objective in that regard. Not, I won't say any, because there are some that try their best. There are ones that will push back and say, "Well, no, you can get the dev kits for free if you're doing this." Or there's ones that are saying, "Well, they also have it where their operating costs on the gaming covers for like the studios, or it's not tied in directly to Game Pass and things." So there are some that dive a little bit deeper and try to look behind the curtain even further, as opposed to just going with the clickbait stuff that's out there for the Xbox tax, for people to come to their site and they can do the ad revenue for people clicking through their pages or hopefully clicking on one of the ads, kind of thing. But I don't know. It just seems like even when a story has some merit to it, as far as the 30%, let's just say, there isn't anything about what the others are doing. There isn't anything concrete showing that, okay, well, if it is above the norm, how are the norms for PlayStation? How are the norms for Nintendo? How are
Great
the
point.
norms for Steam? Like, I don't know. All I'm going to say is Xbox tax is real. Seen it. We've all seen it. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's a whole nother story. Whether you look at the intentions of said reporters that are solely reporting on Xbox's negativity as opposed to anything that they're doing positive as far as hardware releases or game releases, so be it. But it's real as far as I'm concerned, and it'll be hard to change my mind.
And I wanted to add in about the disingenuous too, because you can see who it is, because those claiming the ROG is not an Xbox are still the same ones that refuse to understand what this is an Xbox actually
Thank
is.
you, sir. Yes.
It's not an Xbox hasn't been a traditional console company for the last 2 or 3 years. They've openly said this. They've pushed forward that they're a multi-entry point ecosystem. That this is an Xbox is how you're playing your Xbox in spending in their ecosystem. So whether you're on cloud, whether you're on PC, whether you're on PlayStation, that's what it means by this is an Xbox, is that you can access your titles, you can access cloud, you can access Game Pass, you can do all these kind of various things, not all of them all at the same time, because sometimes, like with the ROG, you can't do certain things natively, but you can access them with cloud gaming. Same thing with PS5. You're not going to get certain games on there, but you're still spending and actively working inside the Xbox ecosystem. And so many were like, this isn't an Xbox, it's not an Xbox. They still refuse to see that Xbox is no longer only a console company. It's not the case anymore.
They are moving differently because they have to. What is it that you want Xbox to do? Release another standardized console so you can say they stepped on another rake and they failed? And again, this is another point. I totally forgot about this. Outside of the dev kit talk, outside of the demand of 30% by Amy Hood, the CFO, there was another conversation, and it totally slipped my mind. And that's because there was so much shit to talk about, I actually forgot. And that is the commentary from Sarah Bond regarding the premium Xbox experience that is coming for next generation. And somehow, ladies and gentlemen, some way, because it's going to be premium, you would expect it's going to come with a lot of power. And what did the anti-Xbox pony community talk about? What did the disingenuous journos talk about? PlayStation is going to be half the price. The PS6 is going to be much cheaper, but less powerful. And a narrative was spun about, well, you see, maybe we don't need power. Wait a second. Pump those effing brakes, yo. Are you serious? Like, that is power was a thing. Games, first party games was a thing. Value was a thing. And it constantly and consistently changes. But according to many, oh no, Boom, you're wearing a green tinfoil hat. There's no Xbox tax. Folks, the case has been presented. And I think the jury, which of course is you, are going to agree that there is an Xbox tax, and it's disgusting. And you know what I say? Turn off social media. Like Paris always says, it's not real. I've been playing the shit out of my Xbox and loving every second of it. In fact, I have so many games, ladies and gentlemen, that I don't even know what to do with myself.